Welcome back to SNC Tonight. The Biden administration would like you to believe that the economy is going strong. There are reports today that inflation has risen faster than expected in January as high prices persist. Joining me now is our guest, Jim Agresti. He's the president of JustFacts.com. Jim, welcome to SNC Tonight.
Carl, it's a pleasure and an honor.
Thank you, Jim. Listen, the feeling is mutual here. Listen, Jim, the federal deficit has hit $1.6 trillion this year. To be honest, Jim, I'm not sure that a lot of Americans pay attention to this number, or they conflate the deficit and the debt. But we are spending an additional $1.6 trillion that we simply do not have. How is this going to impact everyday Americans?
Well, you're seeing it in the inflation. You
Yep.
see it in wage stagnation. The really nefarious thing about government debt is that it manifests in ways that are not always obvious to voters, so they don't hold the politicians accountable who created the problem because they never pay off that debt. They basically, it falls onto people in all sorts of ways they don't even notice.
Yeah, it's such a good point. What do you have to say about, obviously inflation is rising faster than we ever expected. I mean, this is insane. I did not expect, and you made a great point, that most Americans don't catch this and politicians get away with this. Do you suspect things are going to get better under the Biden administration?
It's hard to predict the future. If I could go to Wall Street and make $1 billion. All I can tell you is things are very bad. And Joe Biden on Super Bowl Sunday actually produced a White House ad blaming companies for what's called shrinkflation, where they basically put less product in the package. But that's merely a form of inflation, which is primarily caused by government deficit spending and money printing, which Biden and company enacted and supported.
Yeah, this is amazing. It's his very policies that he's condemning, Jim, and it's so frustrating that he gets away with this. The Biden administration has also talked about the low unemployment rate under his administration. There was a jobs report that came out a week or more ago, over 300,000 jobs added. But these are people that are still returning to the workforce as a result of the COVID lockdowns. Am I wrong?
To some degree, but in the historical context, it is a pretty low unemployment rate.
Okay.
But again, that's just one part of the economy. It's good that people are working. The question is, are they being compensated for that work? And the answer is not as they should be, due to, a large part, inflation.
Jim, are you concerned at all that the middle class is being hollowed out? And I'm not a conspiracy guy, but I got to tell you, considering Biden's policies, considering the open border policies as well, it seems to me that these policies are directly impacting the middle class, where the top echelon of Americans aren't going to be impacted, at least not as hard, by these policies. Your take?
Yeah, you're 100% correct. And I would add something. It's not that the top echelons are not impacted. They are impacted in a good way.
Ha,
You see,
good
when
point.
you get a lot of cheap
point.
labor in the country, that helps corporations increase their profits. A lot of rich people are shareholders. A lot of rich people use the services, the unskilled labor, maid service, landscaping services that immigrants provide. So those prices go down, but the burden it falls upon the middle class and the lower class. Hey, if you just have a high school diploma or less, you're going to have an unskilled labor job. Well, you're competing for that job with somebody who came here from a nation with 1/10 the income that we have. They're going to take that job at a low rate because it's a great deal for them. For you, though, you're struggling to make ends meet. It hurts you.
Yeah, I mean it's so disconcerting, and we spoke about this earlier, or at least I did. But the Senate passing this $95.3 billion aid package, when I mean Americans are just hurting so much, and I understand. Listen, I believe that America needs to be strong on the world stage. But this is absolutely insane. At one point in time, the Biden administration said, look at consumer spending, Jim, like consumer spending is up. They were talking about the Christmas holiday season. But the truth is more Americans are putting more or using credit cards more. So they're actually hurting themselves.
Yeah, and on top of that, you're essentially the government's accumulating debt. Carl, you mentioned that $1.6 trillion figure. It's
Yeah.
so enormous, you can't really wrap your head around it. But let me boil it down for you. That is 27% of the federal government's revenues. So imagine you are a household that makes 100 grand a
Wow.
year and you spend 127,000 not just this year, but every year into the foreseeable future. All of that debt ultimately falls on us. So we're racking up personal debt, we're racking up government debt that's going to come out of our hide one way or another. And nobody really, we're talking about Biden, and that's true. He is a culprit here, a major one. But nobody in either party of any prominence has a
True.
plan, a concrete plan to fix this and make it right.
What, Jim? What? Let me ask you. Why do you think that is the case? I mean, listen. I'm a conservative. I mean, everyone knows it. I vote Republican, but it doesn't seem to be an appetite on either side of the aisle to cut the spending. It's absolutely insane. Is it just because they exist in a bubble in Washington D.C.? What do you suspect is going on?
The problem is us, the
Mm,
voters. Voters
okay.
don't like tax increases. We hate them. And we don't like losing our benefits, whatever they may be. Now, some people are getting some benefits, some are getting others. But the moment you touch any kind of social spending program, people flip out. So we're in a catch 22 now where the voters aren't willing to make the hard choices to say, cut this, cut this, cut this. Well, they'll say that about the programs they're not receiving, but the ones they receive, man, you better not touch them or you're out.
Yeah, man, that is such a great point. The Argentinian president seems to be doing this. Malay, I mean, he's taken a knife to their budget. I wish we would see that inside of the United States of America. What do you hope to see in the next presidential election? How could this be remedied? What policies would you want to see? We have about 30 seconds, Jim.
Sure. We have to get serious about getting our spending under control. And somebody has to be willing, like the Argentinian president, to stand up and say forcefully and vocally, this cannot go on. We are hurting our children. We are damaging our nation's future. And we need to kick butt. We need to get our act together here.
Yeah, I so agree with you. It's got to be a moral argument. Jim Agresti, president of JustFacts.com, JustFacts.com. I appreciate you joining us today on SNC Tonight. We'll be back to close it out.